My dad had fought in the Army, World War II, and he wanted to visit an Army buddy here in Wichita. So the three of us came to Wichita, and I was roughly about 4 years old. We stayed 3 weeks, and that's all it took because my parents fell in love with Wichita. My dad bought a house, and then we joined a Catholic church parish, and it was called St. Margaret Mary's Parish. And then they asked my mom, well, she's Mexican, she's obviously going to know how to fix Mexican food, and they asked her to head the Mexican dinner for St. Margaret Mary's. And of course, she did an overwhelmingly superb job, and the people started saying, oh my gosh, Connie, Ralph, you guys need to have a restaurant. So it was the parishioners from St. Margaret Mary's that encouraged my parents. They kept saying, Connie, you're a good cook. You've got to have a restaurant. So eventually, make a long story short, my dad got Mom a restaurant. It was really rough because it was the three of us only. I was the first ever tortilla maker because I had to make the tortillas early in the morning and so that Mom could turn around and put the ingredients in, the burritos as we know it now. It was incredible because I started out as tortilla maker, eventually a dishwasher, and then my mom would go out and take the orders. My dad was a cashier, and it just started there, and I just increased my labor title from cook to cashier to a waitress. And it just, word got out, those burritos were delicious and they were a quarter. So that's how the business got started. So once I was forced to learn English, I was so self-conscious of my accent. And I never, in school, I was very shy, introverted. I never volunteered because I didn't want anybody laughing at me. Well, that was then, but at 14, we were already toying with the idea of my parents going to have a restaurant. And then they started hiring immigrants. And that's when it came into beautiful play because I could communicate with them. And it was just such a blessing. I thought, oh, yeah, this is cool. And then as time went on, I found out just being part of life that it's cool to know more than one language. And if you know several languages, well, that's even better. So I thought, gee, all this time I was ashamed, but it turned out to be a blessing because this is the way I communicated to the cooks and the waitresses. So yeah, thank God that happened to me in my life. And it was my job to observe on-the-job training. And I learned, and Dad said, you're going to stay here and you're going to run this business. And again, I said, no, I'm not. Every time I told him, no, I'm not, I stayed put. It was very, very rude awakening because male salesmen didn't want to deal with me because I'm a woman of color. And these salesmen were very rude to me, and I would say, well, my dad's not here, so can I help you? No, that's okay. Here's my card. Give this to your dad. That would hurt. Time after time after time, I just got turned down, and I wanted to be a part of the business. Dad's telling me I have to be a part of the business, and nobody wanted to do business with me because I was a woman of color. I got married and had 5 little girls. This is number 4. Every time I have a baby, I take them to work with me. So I would haul all 5 girls to work. So eventually, they really grew up in the business. They saw everything. They saw how hard it is. They saw hard work ethic, in living color. And I think the first 3 daughters saw how hard it is to run a restaurant. And they just decided, no way. So they went on to get their degrees and masters and whatnot. And thankfully, these 2 younger ones decided they could help Mom big time, and they have.
We watched my mom go through, running the restaurant as a pretty much as a single parent at that time. Back then, I didn't take it serious. I was involved with like promotional events and fun times. And then as time went on, like I grew love for the restaurant. I love, and to this day, I still love being there. I know people think I'm crazy because it's a stressful environment, but I enjoy being with people. I enjoy the public, and I love, sharing our legacy with the rest of Wichita, and it's fun because I learned a lot from my mom, and I felt like continuing on the legacy. What me and my sister, what we could do with Connie's now today, and so. That's what I decided. Okay, I'm going to put my 100%. In the past couple of years, like ever since the pandemic, I put my 100%. And like, what could I do if I did that? And so here I am, and I love it.
I never, and they can testify. I never told my children, "You're going to stay here. You're going to run this business." I just figure they're going to expand. They have their freedom. They're going to go. They're going to fly away, and see what happens. Thankfully that the two youngest took on full reign, and she's the one that spearheaded this whole patio idea. Of course, I'm old school. I just wanted to keep everything, be complacent. But because of her, she goes, "Mom, I think we could do way better if we got a patio and a nice parking."
And the mural.
The mural, and they go, "Oh." But finally I said, okay. And it was a blessing that I allowed them to expand and just go for it.
After the pandemic, we decided that, okay, we're going to get out of this hole because a lot of these small businesses were closing. And so it was either we shut down or we keep working and change things to revitalize the restaurant. And so that we did. So we took a risk. And that's when we decided to do the outdoor patio and then the mural because we needed attraction. I decided to, sit down with my sisters and say, hey, we need to bring in the younger crowd, the next generation. So that was the idea too, is like, hey, Instagram worthy, mural. It kind of goes with the whole theme on the north side. Social media is a powerful network these days. And so I was like, what, if we get a big, mural, people are going to want to take pictures and put their cars. And yeah, sure enough, it did. It worked,
I hope our customers feel that when they go in, they're just going to go home to have a nice dinner in a family atmosphere. I know that people say, well, there's a lot of restaurants. There's a lot to pick from. But I just feel like more restaurants are popping up and thriving, and that's the key. And I never worry so much about, oh my gosh, a new restaurant's going up and down the street. I just feel like we have maybe the same ingredients, use the same ingredients, but we have a different theme. We have a different way of trying to attract customers to come and try our burritos or deep fried tacos. And now I think another big draw is we finally got a liquor license, right? Again, thanks to the kids. Because my dad and mom and myself always thought, oh, liquor license, it's a lot of trouble. It's expensive. But now they made me realize it's very, very worthwhile.
There are times that we have to okay, what do we got to cut back on this week? Because this went up, there's taxes, and the food, and then we got payroll. That's been something that we struggle with on a week-to-week basis, and especially the times if it's slow at the restaurant, then it affects, obviously all of that. And so when then it's busy, and then, things flow better. But that, I would say, that's our struggle still to this day, is the economy. I was always afraid to tell people no. I was always afraid to put myself in a situation like, oh, I was afraid. And I remember my sister, Dele, would always say, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Be fearless. Because times like, being a leader, being afraid and all that has to go out that window.
We are tied into lots of issues with the community. We help where we can. If there's parades, if there's this or that in the community, maybe we don't give much for scholarships or something, but we do our share to help out the community. Of all things, we've had trucks and semis try to drive through our restaurant when we weren't even open. Thank you, Lord.
Sundays.
Semi came through there and wiped out our business in 1976. And then in the early 80s, this 18-year-old kid, drunk, from Towanda, again, drove through our restaurant, lost his life. That was a major setback. Every time we had a truck accident, we were closed down for such a long time. And then one day, I heard a kitchen cook scream, and she comes running down the hall. She goes, "Carmen, the roof is caving in the kitchen." I go, "Oh, my Lord." So we go and see that. And how many months were we out of?
The fire department came, was like, "You guys got to shut down." I'm like, "What?" It's during dinner. And we didn't know what to do. It was like the payroll, or it was like the next day, and we didn't know what to do. And we had to shut down for, 4 months?
Yeah, I think so. I'm somewhat of a spiritual person. I would just say, just pray. Just pray your way through, and you'll get your answer. Lean on God. Trust in God.
Pay attention. Pay attention to your customers. Pay attention to your employees. And most importantly, take care of yourself. You need to be strong, healthy, and good to go for just your whole organization to work. So important. If you don't take care of yourself, everything is going to be a domino effect. I strongly advise that. And I've told other entrepreneurs, like, just take care of yourself, listen, and just pay attention no matter what. And always learn. Always learn. Never stop.
That's a good point. Sometimes I forget, oh, yeah, I had that part in my life. I was smoking, and pretty bad. Of course, running a business is stressful, so I was smoking a lot, and I thought, this isn't good. And then one day I opened up the newspaper and said, "You want to train for your first marathon? Sign up at Health Strategies." I thought, that's it. I'm going to do a marathon. And that's what happened. I found this...
An outlet.
You have to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to find a passion besides work. Mm-hmm. But I just took off on that. I loved the feeling of finishing one, and before I knew it, I was hooked. I got so much gratification of not being tied down to the restaurant. I was out there free and no headaches. I could even think out some of my problems of work, but still, it just gave me that release to concentrate on something else besides the restaurant, and it was good for me.